So now we'll be followed by Prof. Emanuella Tilley. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to take from Annette's lead and leave the lectern over there. So, let's see how this goes. So I'm here just to present a case study, really. Here at UCL, we've made the big leap. We've done a massive change in the way we teach engineering. So my talk today is in 4 parts. It really is just to tell you what it is. I'm going to jump right into it, but that's not really what I want to talk about. I can tell you the significance and its impact, but really I want to talk about the phasing. So there was an initiation and implementation phase, and then there is what we're going through now, which is the maintenance, sustainability, growth, and, you know, knock on wood, maybe we're on the verge of cultural change. And then the lessons learned, of course, we'll share those. So this is the program. Like I said, I'm going to jump right into it. I have a poster tomorrow in the IFEX conference, so we can talk more about the details if you wish. So UCL is quite traditional in the way it recruits students. So in the vertical columns, those are our departments. Those are our departments. So they span from biochemical, biomedical, chemical, civil, electrical, mechanical, computer science, and management science. And the IEP, the Integrated Engineering Program, is not a new degree. It's just a framework to break down the barriers of the structure that currently exists. So what you see horizontally are the elements in each year of the undergraduate student programs, or the degree programs, where the IEP exists. So the coloring is quite important too, and I'll tell you about that while I describe it. So the engineering challenges, design and professional skills, and mathematical modeling and analysis are 3 full modules that happen in the first year, and those are new. The engineering challenges is a PBL course. It's broken up into 2 projects. One is discipline-specific, and the other is interdisciplinary, where we get students from all of the departments to work together on a project. That happens within the first 10 weeks of them studying engineering at UCL. We have a design and professional skills thread. So if you look in green in the year 2, there's a small line there, because design and professional skills carries on in the second year. And that's where we actually teach the skills. So we give some time to teaching creative thinking, critical thinking, risk, ethics, sustainability. That's the bit where, when they practice it, there is also some theoretical teaching too, and there's time and space for that. Mathematical modeling and analysis, I don't talk about this a lot, but we realize that that's a common element across all of our programs. So we've teach the theory together, but it's now an applied class. So there's MATLAB is the basis for quite a lot of the student coursework. So it's theory is taught together, but then there are quite a lot of tutorials and seminars to teach the applied elements. Scenarios here are quite connected to what the IEP is. So challenges and scenarios are buzzwords, and scenarios are PBL. PBL where 1-week intensives and students don't go to class. Okay, and they have 6 of these in the first and second year. And then the capstone scenario, if you like, or the 9th project that the students actually complete in the first 2 years of the program is what's called How to Change the World. So that one is a 2-week intensive. Students don't go to class. It happens right after the exams in the second year. And it's a socially driven problem that we get our students to tackle, and they're in interdisciplinary teams again. So PBL is threaded through this model. And then the other thing that we've added to the student experience is a minor. And we've taken that from the North American model. But instead of allowing them to do a minor in their own choice, we've created 24 topics that are either industrial or research-based or skills-based. So things like nanotechnology, sustainable energy, artificial intelligence, or there are things like learn a language, programming, that sort of stuff. So that's the program. And in the 4th year, and why it's highlighted with the star, is that we have yet to do the interdisciplinary projects to kind of give a student an option to their discipline-specific dissertation project. This is just another way of looking at the IEP. And so across the middle of the IEP there is the spine. And essentially, it's the practice of all of the core or core learning that their existing program offers. So at the top is the maths and the discipline-specific core content that really hasn't shifted too much, and that's specially designated to the department. And then there's that design and professional skills module that supports all of the projects that happen in the first, second, and third year. So what's the significance and the impact that we're feeling so far? We feel, and lots of people are coming to tell us, that this might be a model for research-intensive universities. We are a research-intensive university. Our provost has put kind of a mandate on us to raise the bar and have a double gold standard on both research and teaching. We've just won a National Teaching Award, which is quite lovely. We recognize it in teaching, but not everyone recognizes it, and there are some mixed emotions about that in a research-intensive university. Recognition by employers and industry leaders, they're starting to say that our students are outperforming their expectations. So it's changing attitudes, it's changing behaviors, building resilience, creating team players. And the student perceptions of their own learning and and learning in general have changed. So they're telling us that this freedom pushes themselves to do their own research and explore creative processes. So out of all of that, this is the backbone and the vision of the change. We knew that in our existing programs, we were lacking the time and space for the students to put into practice and explore the creativity or the art of what engineering is, and to put more context in, so that the students start realizing that it's people that engineering is really affecting. So, the implementation and the initial stages. This is a chronology. I'll go through it quite quickly. We had a visionary dean. He said a little while ago, what's distinctive about our programs? And came back and said, if we want to do things differently, we have to break down the silos, and we have to start being relevant to the industry around us. So, he put out a call. It was literally an email on a Sunday evening with a detailed, almost Wicker Man Excel spreadsheet on how it would be a common curriculum. And there was quite an uproar. But there was also a lot of enthusiasts, because this opened a door to imagination, to change. So one enthusiast stepped up. His name was John Mitchell. I'm not sure if anybody knows who he is, but he stepped up and stepped in and really started pulling the enthusiasts together. So the dean kind of stepped away and allowed the enthusiasts to make the connections, understand what the aims are, understand what the gaps and the limitations are currently, in trying to fill those. And when I say connections, I put a star there to remind myself. And I've spoken to lots of people that this is how they do it too, but usually the connections are about content. So lots of people think, well, mechanical engineers and chemical engineers do thermodynamics, and that's perhaps the connection. But it's not, actually, because the way you teach thermodynamics is actually quite specific to the discipline. And with losing that, I think you lose the students. The connection is in the practice. The connection's in the skills. And that's where we built our program. So then the uncomfortable nature was the review of the full curriculum and the full learning outcomes for all of the departments. So that was a mandate, to understand what was being taught, where were the redundancies, where were the gaps, and how could we come together and maybe fill those. And there was a complete new governance. And when I say governance, the goal was, we've never had a faculty-led program. Our departments were completely autonomous. So this faculty-led program has broken UCL systems. It's just not possible. Financially, it just doesn't work. So the new governance at the faculty level, there was a new director, that was John Mitchell originally. He was like, in effect, a head of department. He was part of senior management. There were new hires, so I was hired as a teaching fellow to do curriculum development and departmental support, delivery and evaluation. That was my part. They hired 3 of us. One was on projects, one was on skills, and one was on the maths. And we were in charge of leading teaching teams, both staff and PGTAs, across the faculty. And this was financially motivated, because if you put staff and PGTAs on the courses that we're running, then there were quite a lot of student load or funds that went to your department. So it was an incentive to give us your staff and participate in the IEP, which is rather crucial to when implementing change, because finances play a big part. There was a new management committee. It was essentially similar to our teaching committee, your departmental teaching committees, but those were the heads of the departments in terms of education, and they governed the strategy for the program, as well as its, where it's going. And then there was an operations committee, and that was aligned with the key players in terms of teaching, but also the administrators, because that was a big part too. So scaling was a big thing. I mean, the strategy for us was rely and benefit on precedents. It was our secret that we shared, meaning that everything we put into the IEP had already existed somewhere. Scenarios already existed somewhere. Skills-based teaching existed somewhere. Flipped learning existed somewhere. The way the maths taught existed somewhere, but it was never to the scale that we intended. So we relied on that. Where we are now is in this maintenance and sustainability phase. New phase, new director. That's me. And actually, this is crucial because the role that John played is very different to the role that I play as director. There are very different mandates. You know, my mandate is about the administration now has to catch up. We need people in place to help with the systems of working across departments now that the curriculum and the teaching is set in place. Communication, we didn't even think about communicating this. Our students that we recruit don't know about the IEP because we just didn't have time, nor did we know it was going to work. So now after 4 years, the role of communications is so heightened. That's part of my daily job, both internally and externally. There's more autonomy with the departments, so there's less being led within the faculty. John and I actually agreed from the beginning that what we want to do is write ourselves out of a job. That the faculty team no longer needs to exist, that it'll just embed in the culture. I'm not sure we're there yet, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but actually, I think it's quite possible. So systematic change needs to, in terms of upholding teaching integrity. So if the autonomy goes towards the departments about how they're going to uphold the philosophy and the teaching of the IEP, then how do we police it? Am I now going to be the ABET of the UCL engineering faculty, right? Am I an accreditation body as opposed to one that leads curriculum development? We do an annual performance review too now to college. So we are thought of like a department. So we have to report on the student experience, and we have to develop a plan each year. So there are new streams of student support too. So things like technical writing and workplace learning and entrepreneurial learning and leadership. These are now the systems that we are putting resource behind. And this goes on to cultural change. So now the IEP in this faculty program, we are now becoming advocates for the departments. Because the departments are asking us, well, we want our students to have, better technical writing skills, but we just don't have the resource. We just don't have the people to help the students with their writing. So can that come from the IEP? And it is happening. So our current aim is to embrace flexibility, and the flexibility kind of comes back to the two programs, or the two models of strategy that Annette had brought in. So the integration strategy and the rebuilding strategy is actually happening in the different departments, based on the way they've implemented the IEP. So the IEP is a thing, but the way each department has actually embedded it is actually a different strategy. So we've just done 5 accreditations in the last 18 months based on the departments. So I can say that 2 departments relied on us because it was an integration strategy. So they needed the IEP to be part of the accreditation process. There were 3 departments, however, that didn't need us at all, because they completely rebuilt their department based on this. So they no longer needed the faculty to help because they completely embraced the change, and it was quite a disruptive model. So even though it's a thing, the way cultural change has happened is actually through the departments. So we need to now put, and this is our motto now, is put people and systems in place to make it harder to go back than it is to continue on and evaluate and develop. So that's principally what I'm trying to do, that there are those financial and operational, central college processes put into place to make sure that the IEP always exists. Lessons learned, really quickly. I thought I'd add a little bit of John humor into this. I know I'm extending past the 10 minutes, but talk to lots of people, okay? So there was lots of conversations, whether they were coffees or lunches, but this was money well spent. This was time well spent. And these are John's videos that he uses when he talks about how we've implemented this change. And then talk to people, but I suppose you can choose the type of people you want to talk to, and we've kind of categorized them in some ways. So there are people that you should talk to, the people that you shouldn't talk to, and the people that you must talk to, but perhaps not need to listen to or not to consider. Because there are going to be, and there always are, naysayers, okay? So be careful who you listen to. Lots of people said accreditation won't allow for it, you won't get the staff to do it, UCL regulations won't allow for it, it will take years. Of course, I mean, you know, if you don't put your own timeline on it, it can take years, or you won't get the space for that. I mean, UCL is having a grand states problem. We just don't have the rooms for this, but we're making it work. Remember the students. So students can be conservative, right? Like I said, we didn't promote this. We haven't said to the students that too widely that we have changed the way they're going to be learning. And they actually really do fight back in the beginning. But once exposed to the way we're teaching, most enjoy it once we're here. And now we're doing more with the potential students to come in and prepare them. And hopefully in the end, we want students that want to come to UCL because of the way we teach, and not because they didn't get into Oxford, Cambridge, or Imperial. So other lessons learned, and this is my last slide. Constraints and context are important. And that kind of links to number 6, where it's UCL is a great place to implement this change, but actually you can put your own institution in that. Your institution is a great place for change. You just need to know how to work that out. You know, who are the people that you need to align with? What are the conversations that you need to have before the meetings and the decisions are made? Sometimes, and we think this wholeheartedly, that sometimes you have to feel it to really understand it. So when you're implementing this across whole departments or teaching teams, you need to give that chance to the colleagues. You know, you need to give them the time and space to start feeling it as well, instead of just throwing it upon them. So that's me, that's it, that's our case study. Thanks for listening, it's been longer than 10 minutes.
Thank you, Prof. Emanuella.